Hello, everyone, and welcome to this COVID-safe legal compliance webinar. How large or small should rely on a risk-based approach. The WHO has provided guidance on how such a risk-based approach can be taken. This QA is focused on small, non-professional gatherings and events such as birthday parties, children's football games, and family occasions. What we're finding is that there are precautions to consider include actions to prevent transmission between people and where to hold the event and how it can be modified to make it a safer environment. And when you look at all the different guidelines out there, that's in fact what you are seeing. Cancelling a planned event is an option that should always be considered, especially in a case of non-essential events or when precautions cannot be implemented or adequately communicated. So as part of the small gatherings, and I'll just focus on these and then we'll look at the slightly bigger ones and then we'll show you how and what the checklists show and what we've actually set up for yourselves as well too. So often there are things like people ask, I'm attending a small gathering or an event such as a wedding, a party, or a sports tournament. What precautions should I take to protect myself and others from getting infected with COVID-19? Well, when you look at these, and these are some of the guidelines taken from the state departments, they always talk about checking local regulations before attending an event, staying at home if feeling unwell, and complying with basic 3 preventive measures. And that is around the social distancing and wearing a mask if you cannot guarantee this distance, cover or sneeze or cough with a tissue or bent elbow, and wash your hands frequently with soap and water or hand sanitizer. And you'll find that this actually continues across all the different events that you're actually running. And if you are moving to larger events, then these requirements will actually continue. The pathway that we've seen coming out of some of the industry plans include this, and you can actually work through it around your COVID event, what the requirements are, and what you actually need to meet. So first off, this checklist and the workflow around this, and we'll give you all of these slides today, is looking at, is the event covered by a COVID-safe plan, or is it approved by the Chief Health Officer? Now, the COVID-safe industry plans are generally good, but the problem that you then have is, well, how and what details do I actually need to follow around this? So this flow chart gives you an idea of what are the key things to actually look at. Now, one of the rules and legals that I'm going to talk broadly here that people then ask is, what about consent? What about privacy? Are we allowed to collect information about people? Isn't there a breach of privacy? If we start to collect all of this information, how does this work? What do we need to do? So first of all, around the consent and privacy part, if people are attending an event, you can have an overarching statement that essentially covers off that they agree to actually provide the information for you to use to make sure that your COVID-safe event is kept as such. And it's also important to just have a privacy, even if it's a small statement, that says the reasoning why you're actually collecting some of this information. And I'll actually show you what that actually looks like. And we've actually been able to summarize some of this down into just a few lines. So it's not taking away, like people feel like they're signing their life away when they're actually registering for your event or coming to it and they need to fill out a form. There are other parts around this with work health and safety requirements, and there is now consistently, and you would have seen this in the past webinars that we've run, where there are work health and safety rules around ensuring that if you are running an event, that you meet your work health and safety requirements by making sure that it is such a COVID-safe type event and you've taken all the precautions to actually do that. And essentially what you then have from this flow chart is following this flow and answering these questions as a yes or no. So for example, determining if your event is an indoor or outdoor event and calculate the maximum patronage of the event at any given time. Okay, we now go to the next one. And this question then says, can the event comply with the minimum requirements of people per square and physical per square meter and physical distancing? So what an example of sometimes what we get asked, especially from religious groups, is, well, we've got a venue that we used to use pre-COVID. It can seat a maximum of 100 people, but there is only 25 square meters of space in there. Under the current rules, that would mean that with social distancing and the likes, that we can only fit, for example, no more than half a dozen people off it. So you can start to see that you need to look at what the whether you can actually meet the minimum requirements of the venue that's there. However, if you move the event in that case to an outdoor event, which a number of religious groups have, then you can then move to the next question and go, right, let's move this event. We can create the number of capacity because we can't meet it in the minimum requirements. Right, now we're going to move it to an outdoor event. Right, now the next question is develop a COVID-safe event plan that complies with the key public health principles. And you can start to look at how you actually do that and what that comes into it. You can then see from there that you can then look at, is the event classified as a category 1 event? If it's no and yes, what does that actually look like in terms of how we're doing it? Now, when we look at these items, what you'll be able to see, and I'll just bring this up for you as well too, is under the industry plans, and you can see this here that we've got here, is it defines what the category 1 events are, what the category 2 events are, what the category 3 events are as well. And what it gives you is essentially the checklists of working through each of the items that you need to follow. So when agencies, and we'll do this with agencies, so if any of you have any questions around this, you can absolutely contact us around this and we'll help you work through this as well too. So it asks you around, well, what are the processes that you've got in place? Can you meet the minimum requirements around, for example, screening, facilitating, contact tracing? How do you manage all of these? And it provides you essentially the checklist that you need to look at both before and during. Now, when we've looked at these frameworks, and you can see that we've got a number of the items in front of you here, it'll give you some of the areas to actually look at and what you need to actually do. What I will say, the difficulty with these types of plans is that it doesn't allow, from a legal point of view, unless you copy and paste it into another doc, it doesn't actually allow you to have the dialogue and reference the evidence or documents that you're actually relying on. So what I mean by that is, let me take, for example, when it talks of screening. Now, screening appears in every COVID-safe event type of plan. It looks at what you need to do before, and it looks at what you need to do during the event. And this one here talks about, at entry points, have event staff or security personnel ask screening questions of attendees. And these include, in the last 14 days, have you traveled from overseas? Have you been in close contact with a person who is positive? Are you an active COVID-19 case? Are you currently, or have you recently experienced a cough, fever, sore throat, fatigue, loss, smell or taste, vomiting, diarrhea, or shortness of breath? Now, if you were, and I'll just make this screen slightly bigger for us to see, you can imagine that if you were to do this for every single person that came in, it would take time to actually do it. Some people have been running registers, which works well, and paper-based forms. But then the problem becomes, well, how do you in fact manage this if you're asking every single person that's coming in these screening questions? And what do you do if somebody says, well, yes, answers yes to one of these? What do you actually do around this? So when we look at, and I will cover us for running these events from a legal's point of view, the checklist I'll send across to you and you'll have access to that. But also, when you look at the process, and I've just drawn a slight diagram here, yes, you can invite attendees. Then you need a registration form. Then you need to sign in an attendance register, and then you need to be able to notify someone as part of this surveillance pathway of, well, what if someone says yes? You obviously turn them away, but then what if the other contact points as well too? How do you in fact manage this process through it? So I'm going to say over the last few months, some agencies have initially started off with running an event attendance register, and generally that's worked well. And you can see that on here. And for some agencies where it is a very small group, I'm talking no more than 10 or 20 plus, 10, up to 10 or 20, not 10 or 20 plus, up to 10 or 20. Well, that works well because essentially you can see all the people that are there, and you can then also have them sign in. And again, you need to look at things like PPE requirements and ensure that no one uses the same pen and wipe down and the likes, so that there's no possible transmission between them. However, what is being used now, and I'll show you how this works on this live application as well too, essentially what you can do, and we've got the QR code in front of you, and if anyone wants to, I'm going to say, do this with us, you can certainly do that with us now as well too. And what I am going to show you is how this in fact works for an attendance register on a live system where you can directly register using this form as well. And this is, I know it's slightly new to people, but it allows you to in fact monitor all of these system parts. And let me bring this up for you now. All right, let me bring this up for you to show you how this works. So, quite simply, what we are going to do is list this up for you. And this will give you an idea of exactly how this QR code actually works. For yourselves that are actually having this in front of you, if you like, you can actually sign in on the QR code itself with me as well too. And this will then bring up also some details for you to see. And what you'll now see in front of you is my phone. So quite simply, I'm going to take a picture of the QR code directly from the screen. And what you'll be able to see on my live mobile is in fact, there it is here. And what you'll be able to see on your screen now in front of you is the community contact tracing form as well. Now, in this case, what I've mentioned is I'm going to type in, so this is my COVID event contact tracing form. I'm going to show you how the QR code comes up and where you can get it from on Gemba and where it actually links back. So in this case, what I've got here is and I'll talk you through this, is the community event tracing form that I've set up. It's for my group ABCD group. And essentially at the top here, what I've got is saying, by filling out this form, I give my consent to use this agency running the community event for my information to manage and keep it COVID safe. That includes disclosing it to any government departments in order to report any COVID safe applications. So I've got that at the top here. What I then have is, let me fill out my name and my phone number as well too, which is also clearly available on Google. And what I've then got is this list of criteria. Now, this list of criteria where this came from, if you remember, is directly from the industry requirements. So what I've got is here, and we've actually pulled that this requirement that says at entry points that have an event staff or security personnel ask the screening questions of attendees. So what we've got is this requirements here that we've actually taken directly and then essentially placed it back into the form that you see in front of you now. And here it is. So in this case, I'm going to select no, and I'm going to say reason for attending the event. Now, one of the things that a lot of people get, a lot of the people with when they set these up, the problem that they have is they say, right, we are looking at running this for visitors, and people or clients that come to the event. But what they miss though is contractors, their own staff as well too, that might be setting up the event, cleaners that obviously come in and help you clean the event during and after as well too, and any other contractors that you might use. So in this case, I'm going to just say that I'm a contracted cleaner for this event, okay? And that's the reason that I'm coming in. Is anyone else attending? Yeah, well, anyone else that is attending, I'm actually going to say is Barney Rubble and my two staff, Dino and Jack. And now I can actually submit that. That comes up, and here it is here. So I've then also set this up so it allows you to essentially run this. Now, the good thing about this is that when we have this information that's there, it places in information that's directly into the system. So from here, what you're then able to do, and this is where people then ask us, well, how does this work and where do we actually get this information coming back? Now, all of the responses, and I'm actually delighted to see that while we've been playing around with this, we can actually see that we've actually got, and I'll just hide a couple of names here around this, is Barney Rubble has actually put this up. And you can then see that I've actually submitted and someone else has put Dab Banana and the likes. So if I look into this, I can actually see all of the responses that we've got. And it's great that a number of people that have joined us today have actually jumped in and added this information in. It also then means that this information is then transferred directly back onto your own dashboard. And this allows you to, in fact, run this. Now, with this, and there are a couple of questions that are coming out of this, which is great. So what we've got here is essentially when we jump directly in, and I can look at the data sets that are coming both from my Gemba side and also linking it back to my event form, then essentially what we've got, and people that have listed information here, I can see that there are 8 responses from some of the people that have already replied and to our questions. And with it, I'll actually pick out one of these around this, and you can then look at the individual questions or the questions in general. Now, there's a number of people, I can see that 9 people have now responded to this as well too, which is great. And if I wanted to, then here is one, and I'll just make this up. I'll just check to make sure that no one has put in anything here. Here is someone called Banana that they've just done. And here it is here of the details that are there. So with it, you can see that around this, it is live. So yourselves, as I've actually been doing this presentation, people have actually just completed, and this is just a test session that we've actually been running around this. And essentially what you've been able to do is use your own phone directly from here and immediately link it back in. It means that this is very quick in being able to run your own data sets around this. A couple of people have just asked, who sees this data? Are we a private company who has access to the data? We provide the infrastructure for you to be able to do it. So we support, alone in Victoria, a number of large community health services and the likes, Aboriginal services like Rumbalara as well too. Rumbalara is actually looking at setting up their the QR codes across all of their sites and also on their vehicles as well too. So what we're talking about here for community events essentially gives you access to all of this information. Now, what I mean by that directly from here, you can see that the forms that are done and all of the data sets that are put in effectively flows back into your own profile. And these are the data sets that you can see. In the last few minutes, another person has already responded to this. Now, the benefits of using the QR codes around this is quite simple. As you can see, I've actually not interviewed any people, but already a number of people who've joined this session we've already got 10 responses. So it allows you to, in fact, do your screening without using the, I'm going to say, person power and to run all of these attendance registers. But you've got access to this live data consistently. Now, how we've actually set this up to show you is that within your COVIDSafe plan and when we look at things like the industry checklist, you can see here, for example, under this industry plan for measures that they've got, okay, yes, tick boxes for implemented. And that generally works as a good starting point. The problem, though, is when you run events, you need to add in information and keep a record of what you're actually doing. So what we have done and you'll have access to this on your own resource, is to have in your COVIDSafe plan section, which is the disaster button here, you have a list, and I'll bring this back so you can see this. You have the ability to click on it. You can open up your project space. You can go into what we've called is the community event section, and here we are here. And essentially what you've got, and I've just loaded 3 in to show you how this works. So in the industry planning section, you have, for example, screening. You have 1.3.1, and then you have before requirements, and then you have during requirements. So how do you then just simply tick a box and go, yeah, that's done? You want to be able to show what you've actually done. So what we have set up here is 2 things. In your screening part, I can say, right, and I'll just jump to the during section. It gives you the information checklist of what you need, so you can see those, and I can see I've screened those there. It also gives me the details of if I needed the due date. So if I've got an event that's saying being run today, I can tick that off and say, yes, that's been done. What I then have here is the ability to say, I have used the QR code register to manage this event, okay? And this then gives me that information there. Now, when I go in, what it actually shows me is here. It gives me the staff member's name of when they've done it, what time they've done it, what they've done, and what file note they have. So it then means that if I then want to add a new comment, like a new file note, and say, I'm now checking this on my phone and see that 11 people have now accessed this. So every time I make a note, it's then kept a file note of what we see. So within with this, what you can see is that I have more than just the industry checklist and the likes. What I have is effectively a file note register of everything that I've done and the time and date that it's actually being run on. Now, with this, what we have set up for you is the direct, because people say, where do we get our QR codes from? So with this, we've actually linked this to the forms that you have on your resource table. And from here, you can actually get, for example, your form, and it's listed under your document registrations. So for example, in Rumbulara's case, what you can see is And again, if you use your phones to actually scan this as well too, you'll find it comes up with the form, the community event registration form. What we have done for agencies like Rumballara, and we're working through that at the moment with them, is looking at setting up site-specific codes for them. So when they have access to this, they in fact get a QR code specific to each of their sites. For other agencies, the QR codes themselves have actually been done for the community event around it, and you get a list that's specific for your agency to use around this as well. And so you have access to those directly under this section here, which is under the document section, and you can then view that directly for your agency to use, and it's for your agency specific for you to use as well. And it allows you to run these forms as well. You can see now, as I've just checked in, that we've had now 11 people register this as well. So you can see how quickly it can actually be done when you're registering these forms. The important part, and we're getting questions around this from agencies, is essentially we can also, and a few people have just asked, under new regulations, when is the paper-based registration no longer an option? So essentially what we've done is move it from the paper-based version to the QR registration for you really simply. What I will add to this for you is this, and it's really important just to note, is that one of the things that people do ask us consistently about is around the privacy and requirements that agencies need to in fact follow. And it is something that causes concerns for agencies around this. So let me just talk around this for you as well too. The issue that agencies have is around consent that people have, and the ability that people must essentially have the consent and meeting their privacy requirements that they also need to meet as well. And when you actually go onto the app, onto the QR code, what you will find is the requirement and the field that actually talks about consent and privacy. And the requirements that it actually says, well, this is how you can actually manage those requirements as well too for your own community event. And it's something that allows you to manage this very simply as well too. Now, in the past, I've had said around 2 agencies, being Rumballara, Aboriginal Cooperative, and I thank Laurie Seville again for sharing this resources and information, and also Women's Housing, Judy Line out there as well too. And also we've been working very closely with Lena Tompkinson, the Executive Assistant and Compliance Officer at Women's Housing. Now they too have actually been using, Women's Housing have been using QR codes specifically for their sites. And what it allows them to do is screen in exactly the same way, not only for community events, but also for people coming into their agency. And by linking it directly back to their Gemba system, they can essentially do away with the paper registration systems that they've used in the past. And you can see that you've got that information around this here. And that's essentially how they've managed it. What we will be sending out to you is the COVIDSafe plans. We've taken this apart and identified each of the specific items that your agency needs to look at. That is then made available directly into your own COVIDSafe space. You can view that directly into your disaster area by clicking on the projects, and each of your event spaces are then managed in that way as well too. And it becomes a checklist resource that you're able to in fact manage. It also brings in line the 3-step framework that you need to meet as part of your overarching COVIDSafe plan. And it also brings together your legal compliance obligations. Now, the other part that we will just mention around this is the safe work requirements. And part of that is the checklist from Safe Work around how much cleaning, for example, or social distancing you need to meet as well. And there are a number of rules that you also need to consider around this. These include social distancing and the number of people coming together as part of that. Some of the key things to actually think about is the state laws that you need to follow, and we've covered that in the previous webinar. Looking at, does the venue have a COVID-safe plan, or is there a relevant industry plan? What services am I running? Can I maintain the rules of work health and safety? What are the other things I need to consider as well too? And whether and how to run your register of attendees. And I've shown you how that works. Equally, as part of this, the other rules that we've also included is around the physical distancing rules. And these are things that Safe Work published a number of months ago, and also around the health and hygiene areas as well. We've put that all together for you along with the cleaning registers, and also we'll send all of this information out to you this afternoon. So when I've said let's take a look at the resources and real life case studies of joining these dots together, what agencies have done quite simply is this, and I'll step it through for you as well. Agencies like Rumballara, what they've done essentially is taken through the tools that they have. They've got the COVID daily assessment form that's located on the left-hand side. They've got the disaster area as well too that they can manage their projects on. Their industry plans and the checklist tools for the client-side events, the community events or group classes are listed here. And they're able to go in and essentially mark off individual items that they need to see. The QR codes that they're relevant, that they need there, can be accessed from here, and they can take any number of these and apply them to different programs and systems and events that they run. Once they've done that, they then can go back and mark off whether they've met all of the requirements. Now, a couple of people have just asked what happens if someone ticks yes on the actual notification. What happens? Well, in that case, what happens? An alert goes out to whoever the administrator of the system is. And in this case, we've got it as Fred Flintstone. And when you get access to it, and this was the important part, we have asked people to identify with an attendee, but essentially what it'll also do is flag up and send you an alert and say, hey, look, you need to be aware of this because this person has ticked yes. And it is something that is important as part of your contact tracing obligations. So with it, you can see that essentially you've got these resources at hand, and it makes managing your event a lot simpler. What we are suggesting that you look at doing is reviewing the policy and documents that we'll send through this afternoon, create the tasks and measures in your disaster management process, identify the workflows, and also look at using the COVIDSafe dashboard to manage your events. If you do have any questions around this, by all means, please contact us. You've got my mobile number listed here. It is available on Google. We've been publishing it around. I do thank Rumballara Aboriginal Cooperative and Women's Housing Limited, both Laurie Seville, the Chief Operating Officer out there, and also Judy Line and Lena Tompkinson out at Women's Housing for allowing us to share their resources and information around what they've done in the past. If you do have any questions, by all means, please give us a call or drop us an email. We will open up the phone lines and more than happy to stay on the line and answer any questions that people might have. If you are watching this recording after today's live session, then by all means, please contact us on the numbers listed below or email us directly. Thank you for joining us today.